Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Doom Patrol. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode. Kind of breaking everything down. I love, obviously, Cyborg is trying to take over as a leader and stuff like that because, it's not like anyone else really knows what's going on. To be fair, he's kind of had the most experience with this whole situation. But there's a lot of interesting things that kind of popped up this episode. For one, it's Cyborg's like, oh, yo, Dad, so let me get the jet and stuff like that. He's like, nah. Assistance from Star Labs? Nah. So it's like, I don't know. It's hard to say what his dad's whole motivation is. What I mean by that is because it seems like he's trying to cut him off. And I don't know whether it's supposed to be some, roundabout way to try and teach him a lesson of oh, you want to go independent, do things on your own, just do things on your own, be smart and figure things out on your own. But then later on he helps him and he's even like, oh, you can always count on me, son. It's like he came to you earlier in the episode for help and you turned him away. But I think for him it's a situation of oh, he wants to be there to be like, see, son, you can't do anything without me, so yeah, always listen to your dad. I've always got your back if you need. It's in some twisted way it seems like, I was about to say maybe some argumentative way it's kind of we're a team, it's like he's putting all these goals on top of Victor because maybe subconsciously he still blames him for Victor's mom's death and everything. And it's because it's interesting because it's he has to hold up such a mantle because he is Cyborg. That's what people know him as, is Cyborg, and it's almost just like his dad treats him as Cyborg rather than tricks him as Victor, to a say. It's he treats you like a superhero rather than his own son, and I guess maybe in his mind he thinks, I'm doing the right thing by doing that because you have so much potential, but it's almost like Victor's guilt over what happened isn't enough. I need you to push past it. I mean, it's even to the point that Victor, kind of took what Mr. Nobody said about not remembering your past and everything like that, and he looks back at security footage about the explosion and stuff like that, and he's like, okay, so did I miss something? But it looks like everything is the same, none of the camera feeds and stuff like that have been messed with. I even love that his computer system literally defines the word authentic for him, and he's like, cute. But the fact of the matter is, I think it is to the point that Victor doesn't know what to believe because it's for one, he's always got his dad inside of his head, but now he's got Mr. Nobody in his head. And that's something he ends up talking about later on with Rita that I thought was kind of interesting because it's now he doesn't know what's the truth because it's a lot of your memory and stuff like that could be something your dad reprogrammed in you. It might not have been your fault because it does seem a little awkward, doesn't when you look at the explosion, it seemed like it came from somewhere that wasn't connected to the vials and stuff he threw. Maybe that's just my but it looks like he threw the vials and they flew over there, boom. But it looks like the explosion came from in front of them. Maybe that was just my imagination. You definitely feel like there's something more to that. I guess, because his brain is like a computer system, all this, who's to say that can't be messed with? I mean, we even see in this episode, Victor's like, well, how'd you get past my privacy mode and contact me and everything? So it's his dad can mess with his systems, obviously. He can work a back door into everything. So it's not above the question, but I think, Victor, he's still trying to figure everything out because for him, I think he looked at this as an opportunity to venture out on his own, be his own superhero, because it's now he can kind of do his own thing. Because Victor called Rita out because Rita's so caught up in everything else. It's kind of do you even want to save the chief and stuff like that? The fact is that you're so sluggish, you're just so caught up in everything. I mean, to be fair, the whole bathroom situation is because she's losing control of her powers again, and she just, it's a reminder of what she is now, and I think she fights that every day. It's she has to keep complete control, or, and I don't think she really was letting anyone know, that was happening to her, that she was losing control like that. And, ever since Mr. Nobody got into all of their heads, he kind of messed with her, and just like he's messing with Vic. And, Vic, like I said, just doing all this mainly because he wants to prove it to his dad. Because Rita was like, the fact is, you're a hero. You could have handled all this by yourself. But the fact is, you came to us for help and stuff like that means that you're just as scared as we all are. I do love that, Cliff constantly pokes fun at Vic to the point it's so what are we going to do now, Batman? And it's yeah, Justice League 2020. I'm okay. And I'm guessing, because it seems like every time Victor hears about, the Justice League as well as the other superheroes, because even Cliff being I bet you Aquaman never loses the keys, even though Cliff is there messing with him. Just because I think Cliff just has a hard time, messing. I mean, he doesn't like kind of being bossed around and stuff like that, which is kind of an interesting thing. I think that kind of a message in this episode entirely, but like I said, I get to that soon enough. But And once again, because, that dude walked up, he's like, yo, you're Cyborg, right? What's Batman like? Never met the man. It's like, oh, really? Aren't you supposed to be part of Justice League and stuff like that? It's just a constant reminder of, like, what you do isn't good enough, almost, to an extent, because it's just, because hearing other people say that, I'm sure just makes him feel like it's coming out his dad's mouth, too. So, there's that. I love that they did take a road trip and stuff like that. They kept getting pissed at Rita because Rita was going so freaking slow. I do love that they had to drive there. And Larry's like, isn't that going to take like a week? It's like, no, it's not going to take a week. It's going to take like 2. It's like, Jesus. I wasn't really expecting them to, like, I guess they're always going to come back to, like, Doom Manor, because it is kind of like their headquarters and everything. But also, it turns out, like, Mr. Nobody, before everything, was part of the Brotherhood of Evil. Is that the same group? I could be wrong. Like from Teen Titans, the TV show, like that, Brain and Gorilla Grodd was, or because I think that was the Brotherhood of Evil. I don't think that was the Legion of Doom. I don't think so. I mean, it's been years since I've seen Teen Titans, but I don't. Maybe it was, but I don't remember them calling it the Legion of Doom. I feel like the Brotherhood of Evil might have been what that was. So maybe that's potentially something they're setting up to. I mean, obviously this was back in like the 40s with the Brotherhood of Evil, but maybe that's just going to be a recurrence. Like I'm familiar with the character Brain, but I don't really know like who he was before he just became, literally a brain in a jar. Which is interesting considering the fact is that Cliff can kind of relate to that situation to a certain extent. But nevertheless, like I said, I could be 100% wrong about that whole Brotherhood of Evil thing, so don't like take that as fact. I also love the fact is that Jane teleported like Cliff and Larry there, but not Cyborg or Rita. And also, like, it's like, well, you could have done that the entire time. And that plays a big role in this too, is the fact is that Jane's like, I don't tell my other personalities what to do. We kind of all do our own thing. And that's actually her giving advice to Larry, because Larry's trying to, control the thing inside of him, and he ends up talking mad shit to it, pissing it off to the point it breaks the bus, just to kind of stick the middle finger to him. But I guess, I wonder, is there more to it, the reason why Jane only brought those 2? She could have grabbed anyone. I guess she didn't want to, like, I mean, because obviously one side of her personality knows more about what's coming than others, because, like I said, the painting and everything like that. But it does beg a question of, like, because the thing is, they kind of do their own thing, they kind of keep to themselves, so I feel like, I don't know if what one knows the others know or not. We're not completely 100% sure how that, like, 100% works. Like I said, it seems like they keep to themselves and stuff like that, so... Because the whole point was, like, Katie was the new one that knew what was going down there inside of that dimension and stuff, inside of the donkey. I also love the fact that the townsfolk are giving them so much shit of, like, we don't want you around here because of you. Everything went wrong in our town. It's like, I mean, if it wasn't for them, you technically would still be inside of that donkey and stuff like that, but still. I guess the argument is because they chose to stand there and fight, that's what happened. I love that they end up going to Fucktopia, or Fucktopia. The first time I saw it, I was like, is that what that's supposed to be? And it's like, I was like, no, I'm sure that's not how it's pronounced, but I'll say Fucktopia. Then literally Jane goes, Fucktopia? I'm like, thank you. Then they went and watched that little puppet show with Steve. I love it. I gotta remember what I recognize that actor from. I've seen him in something. I just don't remember what. There's a sitcom he was a part of that I just can't remember what it was. Like, he worked in an office or something. I'm blanking on it. I love that, they kick it with Steve for a little bit. He wants, apparently, magnetic, like, boots in his legs, his feet and stuff like that, so he can walk up walls and stuff like that. It does make you wonder, because obviously he's, like, the only one there, but I guess it's enough of a spot that everyone comes there to kind of get metahuman abilities and stuff. Like, makes you wonder how big is the attraction there. I mean, obviously there's only one person, but still, I guess if you know, so you come there. It makes you wonder how many metahumans exist in this continuity, in this world, that Dr. Fook ended up making, essentially. But I love the puppet show. And so it turns out, Chief, Niles ended up stealing something from him. He's the reason why Mr. Nobody exists. And it's like, was he working for somebody at the time? Like, Fook tried to say, like, oh, he isn't, like, the great scientist, whatever. It's like, it's me and stuff like that. But it's like, he stole something valuable. I guess it's his research that allows him to make metas. Maybe he took it for himself, or maybe there's something else to it. Was he like, this was like, because I love, like, even Steve was like, oh, when the Nazi flag coming down, he's like, oh, this wasn't in a brochure, but okay. So, but it's like, Was he working for like, you know, the U.S. government or like the British intelligence or something like that? Was that what he was he kind of basically a spy back then or something? I don't know. I'm curious to find out like what that's really all about. I mean, I guess because like Mr. Nobody's coming after him because of whatever it is that he stole all those years ago. It's interesting because Mr. Nobody's doing his own thing. He's not even really doing it on Fuchs' command or something, but it's like, what is he planning on getting out of it? And why isn't, I guess Fuchs never knew where he was, so he never came after himself. I guess he can't really do it. I guess his whole situation has a very limited range of how far, like, all those people in it. Because I thought it was kind of interesting because, like, the ladies could know, like, they look up and they know what the others knew. And I was like, what's going on with that? Like, are they all connected? Turns out they're all puppets. Makes you wonder, are they just, like, humans that were turned into puppets? Or were they just puppets from the beginning that just look like real humans? Either way. A lot of interesting things, like in particular about the Jane situation. The fact is, it's like, oh, how did you develop all those abilities and those different personalities? Jane doesn't go into it, but he figures there's a pretty interesting trauma. He's like, I can make it so that I could take all those other personalities away and leave you there as the core. He's like, if you are the core. And I'm like, oh, that's such an interesting thing. Saying that the Jane that we always see, the Jane that she always goes back to being, which essentially you would think is the real Jane, isn't actually the real Jane. Apparently she might be just another personality, that the core Jane, we might have never actually met the real Jane, because whatever it was, she split her personalities up like that to protect her. She was a little girl apparently scientists experimented on. That's as much as we know that made her the way she is. So, but what they did exactly and why they did it, we don't really know. I mean, just scientists, you know, evil scientists just being assholes. I guess that's what you kind of chalk that up to. But the fact is, she even tells about one scientist being nice to her. I'm assuming that was Niles, why she kind of sticks around him and stuff like that, because he saved her from all of that, I'm assuming. But the thing is, like, it's so interesting. I guess, like, to protect herself, to protect that girl, like, all those personalities, obviously the underground was created. And I guess I thought Katie was at the bottom of it. I guess the real Jane is buried deep, 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 deep. Maybe that's why Katie is the way she is too, because she's the last line of defense of protecting the real Jane, which is also a little sad, because that's even being like, oh, I'm not even the real Jane. Maybe it makes you wonder, does this Jane think that she was the real Jane? But for her, it's all about not having control. And it's actually advice she gives Larry, though, like I said earlier, like the whole, like, she's like, me and my other personalities, we just coexist. I let them be. You know, I don't try to control them. I kind of give, and she even writes at the end on the Widow, like, control is a weapon for fascists, essentially. So, but it seems like that whole situation does seem like it bothered her, because I guess, like, when it was all said and done, she ended up going back to her original personality and just kind of feels like, you know, basically saying that, like, Fuchs was like, you haven't won this small victory of yours. You haven't won anything. You have nothing. You don't have anything, I guess. It's just kind of like maybe digging into the fact is that she's not like a real person, that none of them really are, because they're all like masked, that the real, you know, Jane wears. I guess is an argument that could be made in that regard. I mean, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting, because it does seem like she gets bummed out. Then there's the whole thing. Side note, like, when she was, I love seeing her, like, go full-blown fighting and stuff like that, switching between different personalities, like, teleporting with one and just tossing people around, and then saying fuck, Nazi fucks, and using that as a weapon, and then using the exclamation mark as a weapon. It's like, I love that ability. It's so cool. But then Cliff taking down some Nazis on his own too, like heads exploding. I even love that one of the people he literally stepped on half, the dude ripped his bottom half off and then slapped someone else with it. But when he snapped to, he's like, well, what the hell did I do? Like, I guess it's kind of representing that side of himself. Because it was interesting, because he was talking to one of the ladies and he was like, I can't feel anything. She's like, of course you can. You can feel that something's missing. We all are. And that situation, I guess, seemed like being like, holy crap, this is what I'm capable of. Like, you know, it makes you wonder, like, what side of him is that? Is that, like, the brain? Is that him himself, like his brain or whatever, like, you know, kind of got a little dissociative at the moment, and he kind of snapped and only saw rays? So is that kind of a little carryover from who he was before? It doesn't necessarily seem like that's the case, but, you know, the reality of what his situation is, like, blind rage, is it part of being the robot? Like, is that supposed to represent him becoming more robot than man or something? Like, I'm curious, like, what that really means, like him kind of losing himself like that, being like, oh my god, because I'm sure that's the first time he's ever, I mean, it's kind of sad when you think about it. It's like, oh, that's the first time he's technically killed anyone, because you make the argument technically he killed his wife in that accident. Like, I'm not trying to put it on him like that. I mean, he might feel like that. It's kind of what I'm, you know, kind of alluding to. Like, in his mind, he might, like, oh yeah, she was the first person I ever killed, but this is the first time, and he did it such so brutally. I mean, there's blood everywhere, squished heads. He messed them up, you know? Once again, the fact is they were bleeding like that makes me kind of think like, yeah, they might have been puppets that Fuchs just kind of split himself amongst. I don't think they were probably innocent, normal people at one point in time until he turned them into puppets. But nevertheless, he did get his daughter's number, but I think after this episode, he's not, I mean, he literally crumpled the number up because for him it's like, but I bet you he has it memorized potentially, but for him it's like, how can I go to her? Like, I'm a monster, you know? It's like, it's almost interesting because it's almost, I guess that's the argument you can make about it. Like, he is kind of like a Frankenstein's monsters type of thing. So, you know, he's holding on to this humanity that I guess as time is going on, it will start slipping away once again until he becomes more robot than man. Potentially, I don't know. That's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens in that route. But it's interesting, though, because when it's all said and done, they kind of walked away with nothing. They learned the truth about certain things, but they still no real closer, I guess, to figuring everything out. And I think even Rita at the end kind of feels bad because it's kind of like, yeah, because I was so caught up in my own thing, I wasn't here to really help and stuff like that. Like I said, Cyborg's dealing with his situation, Larry's dealing with his. We kind of got like a more background in his situation because basically life is kind of falling apart on both fronts. John wanted things to be more, it's like the fact that he's like, I'm not going to stay with the military anymore just because like I have to tiptoe around here and not be who I want to be. You know, he's telling, you know, Larry to run away with him, but Larry's like, I got these responsibilities, got my family, my kids, but it's kind of like, to him it's like, I have so much to lose, you don't. And you know, it's like John's almost kind of like, fuck you, I have just as much to lose. And you know, because it's like, you know, John, you could tell John loved him and everything, but you know, Larry was so caught between I think it's a combination of love and obligation, because I mean it's a combination of love, obligation, and fear, because it's like fear of being outed in that situation, not being able to tell the woman that you love, who married you, had your kids and everything. I'm sure he loved her at one point in time, and probably he probably looked at it like, oh, I'm wrong for this and everything. She just kind of wanted to split and go their separate ways because she's like, oh, things are supposed to change, but they did. I'm wondering how much did she really know? She did just chalk it up to kind of be like, oh, you having beers with the guys again. So I'm wondering, did she know, or did she have some semblance of knowing? It kind of seemed like she might not have known it all, but certain things she said made me think she might know a little bit, but I don't know. But it seems like he was trying, basically, Larry was trying to hold on to both sides of his life. And when you're trying to be two different people like that, of course, it's not just going one side of you that's going to suffer. Literally every angle of you suffered. And when the time came, like, you know, his wife Sheila left with the boys. Because I was thinking like, oh, when Larry woke up, when he woke up, I was like, oh man, the thing inside must have went and killed everyone in the hospital. It's like, no, his body was just giving off so much radiation. I guess over the years it's died down, or maybe it's because, I mean, I feel like bandages wouldn't be enough to kind of dull down the radiation he gives off. So I guess given enough time, the radiation in his body like quelled, or maybe it's referencing the thing inside of him ended up absorbing most of the radiation, because it seems like that was when it first started popping up, because you see the energy kind of charging on his hand and stuff like that. Larry tried to split things off with the creature, but you know, it ended up manifesting. He saw John in there, but I'm wondering, is that the creature manifesting itself as John to try and talk to him? Is that what it's going to do from now on? But the creature didn't want to leave him alone, because it is interesting, because when the creature leaves him, he does pass out, like he doesn't live anymore. I guess it's keeping his soul here, essentially. The moment it leaves, his soul kind of goes with it. Like their beings have come together, his soul and its. And if it leaves, it takes his soul with him, hence why he passes out. Or, you know, because it's like he's basically a walking corpse. Without that thing, it seems like he dies. But I guess if they split, his soul will just go back to him, and it'll just kind of do its own thing, potentially. That's what he was kind of hoping for, because he's thinking like this thing ruined his life. Sheila left him, and John wanted to stay by his side. It's like, you know, but I think because of all the damage he caused, like I guess he's like, I don't deserve happiness, because even Sheila was like, I hope you find someone I love that you deserve. And you know, it was there with John, but you know, he had the opportunity. Things were, you know, he could have gone down that route, but I guess he felt like he'd done so much wrong in his life. He didn't deserve the love, the condition that he was in. Seeing that, you know, something was wrong with him, I guess he felt like, no, I want John to just go on and live his life, because I've done enough putting everyone else's life on pause for me, essentially. I don't know. That's how I'm looking at it, but like I said, I'm curious to see if this thing, because it won't let him go, and it's like, why? And it seems like it was laughing at him, so, because obviously this thing can be pissed off because it literally left him on the beams of the facility And it was like, left him a note and everything because it was kind of pissed at him trying to set the ground rules and all that. So it's almost, I'm curious to see, is there going to be any harmony between them going forward? Like, are things going to continue to be antagonistic? You know, because I think, you know, because it's saying like, no, you fucked it up. I think made Larry kind of realize like he can't blame anyone. It wasn't the creature. Like, his life was already falling apart. He was the one that was kind of struggling to keep everything afloat. It's like, no, just give me till tomorrow. Everything's going to be better. He's telling that to his wife. He's telling John, kind of giving him an ultimatum. Like, he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, both parts of his life, he was sinking. And, you know, he thought he could keep afloat, but it isn't just a creature. I mean, I guess you could make the argument like the creature kind of saved John and Sheila from him. It's just because the fact is that they would have never been able to live happy lives if they were like, I guess that's a sad way to kind of look at it potentially. Like, that's what I'm thinking about it. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where things kind of go on that front. I also do love that Stinger at the end is like, oh, we see Steve, he's mutated. He's got like a plant arm, like an ice leg or scaled leg or whatever, another plant leg, and a dinosaur half of his body, like the head and everything. It's like, what the fuck? Okay, is that something we're going to see a lot? Probably not. It's just going to be like, hey, Steve is like this, and it seems like he's enjoying it. So whether we actually see him beyond this, I'm sure that's probably like you know, when you see stuff like that, you're like, that's got to be a comic book thing that they're kind of winking and nodding to. It's like, oh, that's all you get of it. Just know that that exists in this canon. That's probably all you'll get from it. But still, I don't know. Hopefully we get more of Steve and just see what the hell he's up to, what he ends up doing. That can't be the easiest thing to kind of deal with, like that metamorphosis, but, you know, and what does it ultimately do for him? What kind of abilities does he have beyond just having a dinosaur for a head and his body being what it is? Like I said, we'll just have to wait and see, but I'm very interested to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good